At the Abbott mansion, Billy tells Jack he's lost his mother, and his brother panics, thinking she's passed away. Billy says that's not what he means by that. She's ill, but that didn't stop her from stabbing him in the heart. Jack learns she took Chancellor from him and handed it to Victor. Jack gets up to speed on Jill's heart condition and asks if it led to her making such a drastic move. Billy says partly, but she wasn't happy with some of his choices. He obliged her and fired Phyllis and brought Lily back in, but she still sold him out to Victor. Jack's not surprised that Victor took advantage. He's been busy making trouble for this family. Billy thinks someone should make trouble for him. Jack guesses he has a plan for payback and wants his help. Billy nods, "Damn right I do." Jack warns that Billy can't let his feelings get ahead of his judgment. Billy says Victor will get his. That's not actually why he's there right now. He's thinking in more practical terms. He needs to save face after the media's hit pieces. Jack asks how he can help. Billy says with Kyle defecting to Glissade and dying out, he needs a second in command. Jack realizes he's asking to come back to Jabot. At the hospital, Elena worries about Daniel, who seems to be beating himself up over something. She asks him about saying he feels guilty. Daniel feels responsible for his mother's accident. She can recommend a therapist, but Daniel doesn't think he needs one of those quite yet. Talk turns to his history. He says this can all be traced back to when Cassie Newman died. He can't help but feel it's triggered a lot of the events that have happened lately. Elena thinks Sharon is responsible, but Daniel says it all started with him. If he hadn't drank that night and Cassie hadn't tried to drive, maybe Heather would be alive, and his mother wouldn't be lying there right now. Elena warns Daniel he can't blame himself. He can make a different choice, to heal. The way he does that is by forgiving himself. Lucy appears and says, "She's right, Dad." Daniel hugs his daughter. At Crimson Lights, Kyle senses that Summer is holding back. They discuss how they couldn't share things with each other during the custody dispute. Summer tells her ex she can't believe this is happening, it's crazy. Kyle thinks it's good that Daniel's been exonerated. Summer is glad he'll be able to grieve now. She doubts they'll ever be able to forgive Sharon. Kyle tells her he can relate to the feeling of life, giving you much more than you can handle. Summer can see that Kyle's upset. Kyle changes the subject back to her, Daniel, and Phyllis. Summer says she's trying to be strong, like her mom right now. Kyle says Phyllis never shies away from a problem. Through sheer will and determination, she would make sure things go her way. Summer nods. Maybe she needs a perspective shift and focus on a positive mindset. She is going to be OK. Kyle thinks it will take more than a car accident to take Phyllis Summers out. Summer places her hand on his arm and thanks him as Chance comes in. Chance approaches and says he's surprised to see Summer there and not at the hospital. Summer says she was just getting coffee. She asks Kyle to give Harrison a kiss for her and they part ways. Chance asks if there's news about her mom. Summer says she's still unconscious, and the more she thinks about it, the more she realizes that this is his fault. Chance gets that Summer is upset with him. He arrested her brother and didn't follow up on Phyllis' claims that Sharon was the murderer. Summer says, "You're right, I am upset." Just because Daniel was exonerated doesn't get him off the hook. If he'd arrested Sharon, she wouldn't have been able to run her mother off the road. Chance thinks she's looking for someone to blame. Summer says he's being totally dismissive of her feelings about his part in all of this. Chance is a cop and doesn't have the luxury of feelings. There was zero evidence of Sharon's involvement. Summer fumes, because you stopped looking for it. You had plenty of opportunities to do things differently, and you chose not to. That's not how Chance sees it. He was doing his job. Summer says Daniel's her brother. He needed to do more than just the bare minimum of his job. Chance says they have to find a way to get past this. Summer isn't sure there is a way. In the hospital, Lucy asks Elena if Phyllis can hear her. Elena can't confirm that, but in her heart she thinks she can. Lucy walking in with all that love certainly can't hurt. Daniel thanks Elena for everything as she exits the room. Lucy tells Phyllis she's missed her so much. She wants to tell her about a boy she met on tour with Grandpa. Daniel frowns. How old is this boy? Lucy laughs that he's her age. She tells Phyllis about them holding hands. He's one of the sound guy's sons, and his name is Scotty. We're going to text. She thinks he and Phyllis would get along. He knows that a girl wants a guy who will actually listen to her. At the Abbott mansion, Billy tells Jack there's no learning curve, so he can start the job on day one. Jack will admit that his family situation has taken a toll. Billy can take the load off and they work well together. It's win-slash-win. Jack mutters and Billy can understand why he's skeptical. He made quite a speech when he left the last time, but he's been through the ringer, both personally and professionally, and has learned that he can count on his brother. Unlike other members of his family. Jill ripped the carpet out from under him and handed it to Victor. Jack wonders if Victor will put Victoria in at Chancellor to replace him. Billy says it's Nikki. Unlike my mother, Victor puts his family first. He needs to move forward with Jack at Jabbut. He respects his leadership. Jack is touched by him saying that. Billy asks, is that a yes? Jack hesitates. It's just. Billy frowns. Does he not think he's capable, or has he screwed up too many times? Jack assures him he's not thinking that way. Billy's asking for a lifeline. Jack tells him, I'm sorry, Billy. I can't. Billy doesn't think it's too much to ask for Jack to give him a reason. Jack says it will become clear in just a few days. Billy, I'm sorry. He asks his brother to trust him. Billy says he's not showing any in return. Jack can't talk about this right now. Billy says half of his family has turned against him, and that's still not enough for him to see he needs him. Whatever, Jack. Billy slams out of the house. Jack grimaces. At the hospital, Daniel tells Lucy how much he missed her. She missed him too. They joke about her becoming a rock star one day. Things turn emotional as they compare bracelets. They never took them off. Lucy thinks they'll have to make one for Phyllis. She asks her dad if the doctor said how long she'd be like this. Daniel says no one knows. Lucy's sorry she wasn't there for the funeral and him getting arrested. He was alone. Daniel had her in his heart. Lucy thinks he had someone else there for him too. He smiles. Heather. Sally catches up with Billy at the club bar and says he looks worse than the last time they talked. He quips that flattery will get her everywhere. Sally asks if this is about his mom. Billy says indirectly. He went and asked for Jack's support, but he seems to agree with his mother that he's not C-suite material. He might join the carnival. Billy muses that he has no one to depend on aside from his kids, and then she walked in. Their friendship is one of the only positive things in his life right now. He feels they have two choices. They can run away together and join the carnival, or they can sit there and he can buy her a drink. Sally suggests they do the second one first, and then decide about the first one. Sally asks what happened with Billy's brother. He guesses Jack feels the same way the rest of his family does, and that's not going to change. He'll have to accept that. Jack meets Diane in the park and tells her Jill sold Chancellor out from under Billy and gave it to Victor. He came to him for a job, and he couldn't tell him about their ruse. I told Billy no, that's all I could tell him. He wishes he could give him a real reason. Diane says he could if he'd agree to give Kyle back the co-CEO position. Jack's not willing to do that until he can prove he's learned his lesson from this whole ordeal. At Crimson Lights, Chance follows Summer to the patio. He says this whole thing is a mess. He hates the whole thing and has barely slept since this began. Summer tells him he should have been open to other options. Chance was as long as there was evidence to back it up. Summer argues the evidence against Daniel was all planted. Chance says if he had to do it all over again, there is nothing he would do differently. Summer can't accept that. These past few weeks have been hell, and she wishes she could have leaned on him, but all she feels when she looks at him now is anger. Chance says he didn't make a mistake, he was doing his job. Summer tells him he arrested an innocent man, her brother, and now her mother is in the hospital as a result. She may not be able to move past that. I don't think we should see each other for a while. In the hospital, Daniel playfully tries to grab Lucy's phone to see her photo of the boy she met. Lucy says she's glad that she went. Daniel wasn't happy that he had to send her away. She understands why he did. Now that she's back, she wants to plan the celebration of life for her mom. Daniel says they will as soon as his mother wakes up. Summer comes in and hugs Lucy, who tells her grandmother then they're all there. It would be a really good time to wake up. Please don't leave me like my mom did. At the club bar, Sally tells Billy she's always known Jack to be a fair man. Billy says he can be. Sally doesn't always see eye to eye with her sister either. Billy says they have nothing on the Abbotts. He points out they have, not one, but two businesses to fight over. Sally thinks what happened at Chancellor was not his fault. Billy says she's in the minority. He doesn't care what the corporate world thinks, but when it's your mother and your brother it's tough to bear. Sally murmurs that you can't choose your family or who you fall in love with. Billy says the only thing you can choose is your friends. Billy's really glad they made this choice. They start kissing. At the park where Jack and Diane have met, she tells him she's willing to give up her position to make things right with Kyle. This would prove they did what they did to help him. Jack still wants an apology from their son. He doesn't want to have gone through all of this for nothing. If he hasn't learned anything, they'll end up right back where they started. If Kyle can't put all of this behind him, then he can't come back to us. In Phyllis' room, Lucy asks for a few minutes alone with her. Daniel takes Summer out to tell her about Scotty, the new boyfriend. Lucy tells Phyllis they all need her, but her dad needs her the most. She pleads with her to wake up and puts her bracelet on her. In the waiting room, Summer and Daniel talk about how glad they are that Lucy's back. Daniel will never forgive Sharon for the hell that she's caused this family. Suddenly, Lucy shouts, "Dad! Dad!" Daniel and Summer rush into the room, where Phyllis had opened her eyes.